Hello everyone, Gerard Scarpacey here, craft hairdresser, co-founder of the Hairbrain community. Today, it's been a while since I shared razoring with you guys. You know that's my biggest passion. And I've been playing a lot with the guarded razor, and I actually haven't been doing much lately with my favorite feather plie razor. So I wanted to show you some long layering and really some alternative face framing techniques. I'm starting off just by putting in a triangle here where the fringe or the bangs would be. And really what I want to work on is being able to go in a more traditional or classic sense from a short point, opening the face at about the bridge of the nose. Blade is on a bias, which means it's on a slight diagonal grazing across the hair. And then I'm going to step into it as I work my way down, working from a shorter point to a longer point. And I want my longest point to end up really right by the bottom of the ear. And really from here on is where I want to kind of do something alternative with the face frame. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me just kind of match this up on both sides. Let me check through that again, just to make sure it's on point. I'm working with a relatively short, or what we tend to call a closed stroke. So I have more of a definition here. It's just a slight kind of half an inch back and forth movement with the blade and coming through. And we start to get that short to long feeling around the face. Looks like there's one little stray hair there stuck to the skin, just right at the bottom. You can be so delicate with the razor that you can get one hair if you really start to control it. Okay, now we're going to turn around and come onto the opposite side. So a little bit of basics with the razor. You know, if you're right-handed and you're working towards the left, you work with the heel or the back of the razor. And when you work towards the right, you work with the tip, or sometimes people call it the toe or the front of the razor. It's purely for comfort and control. Now my blade is on a diagonal to my fingers. I call that bias blade. So what that means is it's kind of scraping gently before it cuts the hair. So that gentle scraping produces a little bit of graduation, and I'll be working with that all through the face frame. Although I want to, control the line, I still want the line to have some softness to it. Just kind of moving in towards the face, towards the ear, rotating in and using the bottom of the ear there as my finishing point. Looking for balance. Feeling pretty good. Gonna go through my first side and just dust it one more time. A little bit of these ends here. We're still feeling a little bit longer. And then kind of modeling the hair with the comb in the direction I want to go. So it kind of has that curtainy feeling, shorter in the middle, longer into the corners, very Bridget Bardot-esque.
Kathleen was wondering, a bias towards you or to the face?
It has to do with my fingers. Whenever we talk about the blade rotation, the fingers that are holding the hair, when the blade is T to the fingers, that's called edge cutting. It cuts in a more chunky way. When it's diagonal like so, or like so, it cuts graduation, it tapers the hair. And when it's really flat or parallel to the fingers, you're really shattering the hair. Something to be careful about. Can be used really beautifully or can be really destructive. So it's always, when I talk about rotation, it's always about in relationship to the fingers that are holding the hair. Dropping down the second section of this kind of broad triangle here. I'm going to keep it low because I'm looking to build some weight. I'm getting the softness that I need from the bias blade, so I don't need to lift. I'm going to hold it low, and again, cut in exactly the same way. I see the guideline or the reference through the hair and working my way in. Just a very simple, straightforward, technical way of getting this effect. Pushing from shorter to longer, longest point by the corner of the ear. So starting off, I did actually trim the baseline a little bit here, just in a kind of slightly rounded line, just so the ends wouldn't be too scraggly. But we're going to put in this bang or this fringe. Then we're going to work on, a slightly alternative way to face frame. And then we're going to do some long layering here, all with the straight edge razor. Okay, so you can see, very kind of Bridget Bardot-esque. Now, normally when people think about face frames, myself included, we tend to take a diagonal section kind of parallel to the face frame. But recently I was working with my friend Shay Dempsey, great razor cutter and Sebastian creative director. And he reminded me of another way of doing it, a way that I learned in my apprenticeship at Sassoon when we were learning the halo. If you don't want a lot of over direction, and we'll talk about why you might not want that, you can take these sections horizontally and cut your frame in horizontally. Now, obviously, if the section is horizontal, it's going to be easier to keep it in natural fall so that you're not getting over direction. What are some times that you might want to do that? You know, anytime that you over direct the hair, you're adding more graduation and more than likely making that hair a little bit thinner. A lot of times that's a good thing. But sometimes, you know, especially on fine blonde hair or for any point, you might want a more defined face frame. So you can see I've picked up from where the bang ends. I'm working horizontally. Now I'm going to come again with the blade on a bias and just unzip that hair, combing straight down and chasing my fingers. No over direction, just cutting in the angle without really creating a lot of weight removal. I'm going to go over it again and finish it up right by the middle of the ear here. And keeping that length connecting in to the back. Next section. Now for this to work, the face frame has to begin below the section. So you can see sections up here, face frames down there. You can't go, and I don't like to go right to the section because that hair will be so short and it won't move very well. Coming in, section on a diagonal, section on a horizontal, blade on a diagonal, and working my way down.
As you start that second section, are you starting your cutting at the same point as the original section?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I look through the guide and I start at the same point. This is, you know, pretty technical. The razor's just giving it a softer edge, but this is very technical and it's blending all the way through. Literally, you know, we used to call this an Isadora or like a long halo. Shortest point, rounding all the way through to the weight towards about the middle of the ear. So getting a really open face frame here. Next section, I'm going to drop down the height of my mannequin or my client. Take another horizontal section, just working all the way through to the top of the head. Now again, you know, the idea here is to not use over direction so that we keep a certain amount of density in the hair. So again, that could be great for finer hair, or it just could be, you know, maybe that's your design choice. You don't want the hair. Maybe you want the ends of the hair to be soft, but you still want it to feel like it's got density, which I think, you know, gives it kind of a little bit more of a retro look. You know, when we look at these true kind of long page boys or, you know, going into that idea, I think the shag is obviously where it takes a lot more weight out of the inside, but you can still have that perimeter with the bang and the frame. Let's come around and see it from the front. And it just gets very kind of Bridget Bardot. I think it's got that very 60s kind of feeling to it. I will do some long layering, starting from the top of the head and working down, just to create some movement and lightness. I'm working with my YS Park comb. We've just been analyzing the year and we found that mint green, this is the color of the year for YS Park combs. They launched it in a few of the different ones. This is the 338. I love this because it has a stronger spine and it's a little bit ribbed, so I have good grip. And if you're looking for some combs, we've got Black Friday going on all month at hairbrain.pro. Each week is a different collection, 30% off. This week, all combs are 30% off. That's right, hairbrain.pro. That's really the biggest sale we've ever done. You know, we know a lot of people out there are having a hard time this year. So we wanted to make sure that it was a really valuable sale. So stock up on your combs now, 30% off, and starting Sunday, it'll be 30% off all brushes. Head to hairbrain.pro and you can see everything that's on sale. So you can see the fringe working around. Very simple, you know, so far. I am going to layer this a bit. And this is definitely, you know, a very salon-based thing. The thing that I'm doing different, just an alternative approach, at least for me. I don't know about you guys. Let me know, do you normally kind of approach your face frames more diagonal rather than horizontal like this? It's something I almost kind of forgot about completely until I saw my friend Shay Dempsey. We were filming a video together recently. And it just reoccurred to me that, you know, even in our training program, we used to have a training manual that's assumed, and it had like 2 ways to cut the halo and the Isadora. And this way, you know, basically makes it so that you over direct less rather than bringing the hair this way and cutting the angle in. By cutting it down naturally, you can still get a pretty generous angle, but you're keeping the weight and the density in the hair. So there could be a lot of reasons for that, you know. Very often we are working with pretty fine hair around the hairline, around the front. So that could, just that alone could be more than enough of a reason.
Are there any things to consider when you're first taking this first horizontal section?
Yeah, great question. So first off, where the face frame starts needs to be below it. You know, so if I want my face frame to start right here, it's not going to work super well. I'm going to get a very short, weird piece. And then technically as you go above that, it won't work at all. So, you know, when you're doing something like this, and you say, okay, my longest piece is by the bottom of the ear. My first section here is right below the round of the head. I've got ample hair to work with. That's going to work. Now I can start. Then you have to think about your angle. In this case, I'm working with a bias blade. It's medium open because, you know, even though I'm not elevating or over directing a lot here, I want the line itself to be soft. I want to work my way down. Now I'm letting my hand slide like I'm unzipping the hair. And then essentially by the middle to the back of the ear, I want to meet up with the pre-existing length. Now I trimmed myself in here, this little handle and the tripod's in the way. So I'm just going to turn a little bit like that so I don't bang up against it. So I've got my length, my corner down here, right as we get into the back of the ear, I want to meet up with that. So I've got, you know, a generous face frame. There'll be lots of softness and openness around the face.
What are some tips or tricks you can give to make sure that your face framing is even from both sides?
Well, the first thing that's most important is always going to be body position, being a mirror image from side to side. You know, that's going to get you started in the right position. So if I was working on this side, and I was standing, I start off with my hips diagonal to the shoulders. Maybe tilt the head slightly away from me. So I've got this certain perspective and certain way of holding the hair, and then I work through. When I come around to the opposite side, if I don't think about it, I could stand someplace totally different. I look for where her shoulders are. I put my hips diagonal to the shoulders, her shoulders, push the hair away a little bit. Now I'm kind of ready. Of course, I want to have the same starting point. I want to have the same rhythm. Now with the razor, you also have to think about the speed or the rhythm that you go through. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you have to have your target in mind. This length here, right at the back of the ear. Now you could, if you were having trouble with balance, you could go back and forth like I'm doing now, even when you're cutting in your guideline or your baseline. That, you know, is something that could really help you a lot.
What might happen if you go over the same sections many times? Could it hurt it, or
Yeah,
would it not?
Obviously with the razor, you know, the goal is to not have to go over it too many times, you know, because you're going to keep adding more and more texture. When you get skillful, especially with a plie or an unguarded blade like this, you can use less and less pressure and go over it a few times. But if you're using a lot of heavy pressure every time, not only are you perhaps taking away length, you're taking away thickness, making that hair a lot thinner every time. So, you know, you really have to think. So like if you have a pencil on a piece of paper, and you keep going over it very, very, very firmly, eventually you rip through the paper. But maybe each time you go a little lighter with your shading, you might be okay. Okay, so again, coming through, I can see the guide or the reference through the underneath. Now remember, razor guides they're harder to follow. They really are. So you really have to be on point. You have to know where you're looking, know where you're combing, and really, really be on point with what you're doing. I want to say hello to everyone that's watching. Let us know where you're watching from. I know a lot of our friends in Europe, if you're watching, are going through a kind of a second lockdown.
Yeah, Ben is here with us. He's mentioned a few times. Say hello.
I feel for you guys. I know how hard it was, the first and the second time here in California, and hoping it doesn't happen to us again, although things are not looking fantastic. But let's just focus on being the best that we can. So as we get through this, we did have some great news about vaccines. So, hopefully all that works great and we'll be back to work better than ever. So again, very Bridget Bardot-esque. Not a lot of layering, no layering at this point, just a little bit of graduation and not really using any over direction. That's kind of the alternative here. Working, again, I've said it a couple times, but I'll say it for those just joining, when I was a young hairdresser 30 years ago, literally that's when I did my apprenticeship at Sassoon's, we still had like a lot of the original manuals. Was long before the AGC concept, and one of the haircuts we had to learn and practice was the halo, and then the longer version of that was called an Isadora. And there were two ways to do it. You could take sections parallel to the angle, or you could take horizontal sections. And horizontal sections with the scissor especially is so difficult. But what it does do is help, if you've got the ability to do it, it helps prevent over direction forward at elevation, so that you can cut in an angle without adding unnecessary graduation to the edge. So in this case, the razor, I'll be honest, the razor is really designed to do this very, very well, because you can just comb the hair straight down, and I've always called it unzipping, and you can just slide through and unzip like a zipper and create an angle from short to long that's very, very fluid and graceful.
I want to say hello to Kevin Baker. He's here from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Stacy from Iowa. Amy from the UK.
Great people. I hope you're all doing well.
Deb from the UK. A lot of people from the UK.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, guys. I know that you're going through a shitty situation. Hopefully, it really helps to slow the spread, and hopefully we get this vaccine out there quickly, and you guys can all get back to work. What a terrible time right before the holidays. I know most of us, after Christmas, most salons tend to slow down, especially in colder areas, as people start to hibernate. So we really count on this holiday season to be extra busy. So I'm sorry to hear that.
Yep, still more people popping in. Laverne from the UK. Tristan Morrison is saying hello from Canada.
Hey, buddy. Okay, so you can see what I've done around the face frame here. You see there's not a lot of layering here. There might be some from just the nature of the mannequin, but it's a really one length with a little bit of graduation just from using the bias blade face frame. Now, what could be the benefits of that? It could be part of the look, which it is here, just a little bit of a heavier kind of 1960s vibe as opposed to really technically elevated. Or it could be because the hair is fine and you're afraid, and a lot of people have fine hair on the front and perhaps not so fine in the back. This happens a lot. So now I'm going to take a section from the apex, or the highest point of the head, and I'm going to get this face frame out of the way completely. I'm going to comb this back from here. And we're going to take this and treat it just like it is that situation where someone's a little bit finer around the front, but thicker through the back, which is pretty normal.
You just sectioned out your face framing here.
For the most part, the stuff that falls really to the back of the ear here, we've just sectioned away. I'll go over it one more time just to see if there's any little pieces. A few pieces falling over. Coming back through here. The same.
Gino Valley is saying hello from the Hair Gods in San Francisco. Ross in Newcastle. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for hanging.
So next we're going to do something, completely on the other side of the spectrum. We're going to do some long layering from here back. We'll keep it for the most part disconnected from the front. Visually, there won't be any kind of disconnect. Now, this is a question that I've gotten a lot from people with long layering, especially with an open razor like this, is, well, how the hell do you do it? Because we're so comfortable working inside the hand. So I call it backhand razoring. I'm going to bring this up inside, working over the hand with great tension. And I'm going to choose a length here. I can choose it visually. I can think about where that's falling. I want it to be about to the chin. Now, if you watch my hand, the blade just comes around backwards. And I work up to the finger length, right where my hand is. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm able to layer with elevation, which again is something I know a lot of people have challenges with working with the open, unguarded blade.
How do you choose or decide how open your stroke is in this section?
Yeah, it has to do with, how much separation I want on the ends of the hair. I'm treating this as quite thick hair, and it is quite thick at this point. So I'm going down about 3 inches into the hair. So I'm getting a lot of openness and looseness in that layer. And I'm going to keep taking sections vertically, and I'm going to bring them back pretty strongly towards number 1. So I'm going to comb that right back towards number 1. Start to see my guideline here. Not much hair to cut there. The section's pretty fine. Coming back in. We're getting some pieces through here. Directed back. Now, my cutting angle here I'm choosing to start off with is just square everything up to the ceiling.
Why did the majority of that hair fall out?
Because of the elevation. So everything below the occipital bone doesn't reach because I'm bringing it up square or parallel to the floor. And what that does is it makes sure that I don't lose any length. And then in this case, I'm also over directing toward the center. So make sure I don't lose much length here. All right, a little bit more hair to cut there. My first section was kind of fine, but that's okay because we don't want to get lost. Turn that blade around. I'm going to show you that action too, because if you watch, I'm holding the razor the same way. If I was doing what I normally do inside the hand like this, right? Now all I'm doing, I'm putting the hand down at the side, and I'm just bringing the blade up towards the ceiling, but holding it the same way. That's what works for me. And again, I always work, I don't go into my hand. I always go away. I don't know if it's not about right or wrong, but I just think it's safer, and I feel like I have a lot more control. So rather than going this way, I always go that way, toward the right, rather than toward the left. And I found that to be very safe. I'll probably put a little bit of weight removal in these layers, which will be some kind of deep slicing. But here we can see I've just kind of layered through in a very simple way, relating to that face frame. So for me, very true kind of vintage look here. Got that, what we call kind of Isadora shape around the front, very Bridget Bardot.
Mary is tuning in from Limerick, Ireland, and she's wondering, do you ever use a closed blade?
Yeah, so if she means a guarded blade, like so, yes, I do. And I've been really, really into selling this at Hairbrain Pro now as well. You can see this is a little bit stubbier than the traditional feather guarded blade. I feel so much more comfortable with it because this fits in my hand. And ultimately for me, I can do exactly the same techniques. And I've been using it a lot lately. If you look at a lot of the videos that we've been doing, I've been really playing with this a lot because really most of my razoring is taught with the unguarded or open blade. But essentially, techniques that, can be done, that, there's little differences between each, little things you can do with one that you can't do quite so well with the other. So I keep them both in my kit. I'm working with the folding razor or the unguarded razor today because it's been, a couple of lessons since I have. I've been really kind of focused on the guarded blade. And all you have to do, if you might not know, here on our Hairbrain Facebook page, we've got well over 600 of these tutorials. They're not all done by me. We've got a lot of guests, but quite a few of them have been done by me. And if you're all really interested, you can just click on the video button, go through, and review all the different techniques that we've done. There's incredible lessons here. And if you want to go deeper with more high quality production, camera angles, and perfect sound, and all that fun stuff, check out hblive.me, like hairbrained, hblive.me. That's where we have our more produced classes. But we've also got lots of complimentary stuff there as well.
Yeah, thanks to Dyson for hooking that up. Let's see, Kevin Bakery says that you told him at one point that the movement was like looking at your watch when backhand cutting. That helped him.
There you go. It's like looking at your watch. Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes I forget. So, you teach so many things in so many different ways to so many people, sometimes you kind of forget. But yeah, it's exactly, you go like this, like you're looking at your watch, and then you can cut. Okay, now I'm going to come through those same sections and add some deep slicing. I could have done it both at the same time, but I think maybe it makes it a little bit easier for the lesson, and a little bit more structure. So there's some disconnection there from the front. We'll deal with that in just a sec. Let's come through here. Put some slicing in. Really just going to focus on the crown at first, where I just want a little bit of extra pop. So this is really truly just putting in some invisible layers right here in the crown area. And we'll do a little bit on this side as well. So, looking at your watch, thanks for that. I haven't really thought of that in a very long time. It's a great one. Coming through. And just breaking the surface of the hair. Obviously, you decide how deep you want to go and how far you want to go. I don't want to go excessively deep here. I just want to get a little bit of a pop.
If you had a more open stroke when you were, would that reduce the need to reduce weight?
Well, I mean, I would never have a stroke so open that it went that deep. I'd say for me, especially if I'm trying to create some structure in the hair, the deepest strokes that I'm going to do are probably 3 inches. So meaning, and I'm not saying never, but for a shape like this, I probably wouldn't cut the whole thing like that. That would be great for a really deconstructed look. But this has a lot more shape to it than that. So it was much more about getting the shape in and then deconstructing it. So one last place that I think sometimes we forget about, especially with this type of layering, that I find makes a huge difference in the quality of the haircut, the way that it grows out, and its versatility. First, I'll do a little checking with the scissor, which I really highly recommend. Just to make sure that the ends are sealed and not, overly thin. There may be some disconnection here because I'll see some of the face frame, it's right there. And then just coming through, and I do go through, I think this is one of the things, I call it sealing the ends. You can see how little comes off, but it makes a big difference to me in how well the haircut lasts and grows out. Razoring to me is not about making the ends just thin and scrawny. It's about softness, looseness, direction. So anything here, now this is the disconnection from the face frame, which we haven't addressed yet, but we will. So sealing, it's just like putting that zero gloss over a tint. You don't have to do it, but we know it's going to make it shinier, it's going to make it last longer, it's going to lock the color in. You don't have to do this either, but it's something that I found. especially with more commercial looks where, you know, I want that hair to look, even though from here to here there's texture and softness, I don't want the ends to be weak and shattered. Coming through again, there's that disconnection from the fringe. And just bring this all up. You know, I do find this something I do pretty much on every, especially the more commercial razor cuts where I'm not looking for it to look shredded or really hugely deconstructed. I mean, there might be something more creative or fun where I want that.
So you're just going through the sections as you already cut them?
Yeah, you can also cross-check, go through them in another angle if you want, but I just took the simple route, straightforward, and just checking the ends. Now, let's look a little bit at what's happening with the face frame. I'll switch back to the razor. Maybe for a change we'll use the guarded razor, what some people maybe call closed razor. I'm going to bring this. Really, I'm just looking to see what's happening between the layering and the face frame. And, you know, there is a little bit of disconnection. I can come around again and just lightly blend out to it. In this case, I didn't square it off. The reason being, I want to keep that density in the face, around the face frame. So I just want it so that when the hair moves, there's a relationship from the shortest point where the layering is out. And again, you should be able to really pretty easily switch between tools. Now, as I elevate this hair up, it becomes less and less hair, naturally. So coming through, this is probably where we'll see the most connecting, from the shortest layer, right here at the apex, working through. Now again, I could do more, but I want to keep that face frame feeling a little bit heavier. That was kind of the whole goal from the beginning. A little bit chunkier as opposed to really kind of airy. Those are sometimes the words I like to use. Chunky means it's got weight, but it's not blunt or heavy. Airy meaning there's a lot more separation. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to do, I'm going to switch back to the scissor for that, is make sure that there isn't an overly heavy corner between the outline and where the layering ended. So now I bring this straight out, and we're going to see here that there's a corner, right? Because this hair was brought straight up until it ran out. Now where it ran out, you naturally produce a corner. And if you leave that corner on and you leave it very, very heavy and solid, I always find it makes the hair look a little bit wiggy. Like it just doesn't move super well. Clunky. And again, anything that makes the hair clunky makes it not grow in as well. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but as I always say, the difference between good and great, very small detail.
Now, Gerard, if someone wanted, you didn't address the perimeter in your haircut. If somebody did need to bring the length up for this haircut, at what point would they do it? Would you do it right away?
Yeah, so in this case, I pre-cut the perimeter with a shear, with a scissor, just natural fall, slightly rounded with the shape of the body, very low elevation. I didn't think that would be too stimulating to watch, so I just kind of did it. But the general rule of thumb with, you know, long layering is if you're going to cut really more than 2 inches off the length, do it first. In this case I did, because this mannequin had some long bits. Some areas were like maybe 4 inches cut off. If you're going to just like a trim to me, you know, if you're just trimming 1 inch or 1/4 inch off the length, you could do it even after the hair's been dried and styled if you wanted to. More than 2 inches, I cut it at the beginning when the hair is damp. Less than 2 inches, I tend to cut it towards the end of the haircut or even when the hair is dry. So again, another approach to a long layered shape. I think super commercial, but still very modern and fun to do. Combining different tools, the shear, the razor. You can use different types of razors. And you know, just approaching it again, if you missed the beginning, it was really all about the bang and the face frame just being approached in a slightly different way. And then the rest was about just getting some long layering and then softening and opening it up. We're going to put some product in here because we're going to let her air dry naturally. Today I'm working with the Nutra Curls line from our friends at Wella. So some of the milk here. This is, I've been using this actually as a cutting lotion. Nice light milk to prep the hair. Really want to make sure that the hair kind of falls towards the front and we get that nice lift. And then here we also have the Curlixer Balm, which I love that name first off. Again, from the Nutra Curls line. I believe this is a pretty new line from our friends at Wella. We did just send us some goodies. So this is brand new, gotta get the pressure. Okay, this is a nice balmy cream. And then push that in from the ends. I'm gonna, you know, probably just let her air dry, maybe hit her a little bit with my Dyson diffuser. I don't think that that's too super stimulating to watch. So we'll probably start to wrap up right about here. If you are interested in seeing the grand finale, we'll post something here and also on my own Instagram page at Gerard Scarpacey, where I also post these videos in fast forward if you want to kind of review it and see it again. And then I store them on my IGTV. I want to thank you for watching and remind you one more time that we've got a 30% off sale this week on all combs at Hairbrained. So that's some really good quality stuff because we only sell the best available at really the lowest prices that we've ever had. And again, we're just thinking about helping people out and also keeping our business alive during this tough economy. So check out hairbrain.pro. She's looking good. We're going to let her dry off, and we'll see you next week with another live here on Wednesday. And then we've got tons of lives always from Hairbrain on Instagram and Facebook. Peace out.